In this tutorial, I will show you how to read documents with Python Flask and MongoDB. Let's go to VS Code. We have previously connected to the database and we have inserted or created documents in the database. For this tutorial, we're going to create a new route. You can do this anywhere you want. We're going to create a decorator, call it app.route, and this is going to point to users. This is going to be a methods, and this is going to be a get. Let's define the function. You can give any name you want. In this case, I will call it get some users. You will never give the whole list of users to any application, because imagine that you have 100,000 users. You will never pass all of them. The first thing we need to do is try except. And we're going to get this exception as EX. We're going to print exception, and we're just going to show EX. This will show in the terminal, but we also need to pass the response back to the client. So we're going to return response. This has been used in the previous video. And we are going to just copy the response that we had here. Just copy it. If you don't have this, you can just pause the video and copy it manually. And this will be return. Sorry, I made a mistake. I didn't copy the whole thing. I need to copy all of it. So if we have an issue in the get some users, we're going to get to the exception, and then we're going to return a response. It's going to be JSON. We're going to send a message, and this will be a message that says cannot read users. And it's not going to be a 200 because that's an okay response. It's going to be a 500 because that's an internal server error. And we don't need ID because we're not going to create any users in this response. So I can just put this in one line. In your computer, you can most likely do all these 3 lines in one. So you will save a lot of space and the code will be much more readable. Let me do it. Even though you cannot see the whole line, you get the idea how the code should look like. So this is the exception. This is going to be passed to Postman, and this is going to be shown in the terminal. My terminal is running right here. In the try, we're going to read the data that the database will return to us. So I'm just going to call it data, and this will be db, that's the company database, .users.find. Find is a command that will give us all the users. Let me return data for now, so we fix all the mistakes. If you do this, let's go to Postman. Let's create a new route. This will be the get route. So we say localhost /users. When we send this, we're going to have the internal server error. That was the 500 that I sent. And you can go ahead and read all the data that it is telling you. But there are many things that we have to fix. If we look at the exception right here, it says that the return type must be a string, a dictionary, or a tuple. But I'm not sending any of those. I'm actually sending a cursor. And the reason I'm sending a cursor, it is because this data variable is a cursor pointing to the database. The easiest trick you can do is you can just say list, and this will convert this into a list. So let's print data, save it. This should restart automatically. If it doesn't restart automatically, you can click on this window and hit enter. And now we're going to send the request again. Let's see what we get out of the print. Over here, hard to spot, right? Very hard to spot. But right here, you can see that I have an object ID. I lost it. lost it here, and have an array with the object ID, with the name and the last name. So this is what I would like to pass to Postman. Let's do this again. Now in the request, in the response, I am going to pass this data to Postman. So I'm not going to just return data. I'm going to make it a little bit more professional. I will select all these, copy and paste it. So again, it's just one line, but I will break it into lines. So the response is going to send, I will just fake the array with the elements. It's just going to send an array with an ID. For now it's just 1. I'm just faking this. This will be the date in a second, but I can see that we will get into a bug, and that's why I need to do this one step at a time. So this is going to be the response, and I can just close it right there. Save it. Let's go to Postman again and send the request. Now you can see that this is the ID and the name and the last name that I should be passing. But when I do this and then I pass data right instead of this array, we are going to get into a new bug. Send it. And we went into the exception. It says that it cannot read users. This is really tricky to spot because we went right here. It cannot read users. We went to the exception. If you pay attention to the print EX, you can see that we will have the exception right here. Object of type object ID is not JSON serializable. And if you know JSON, and you should know JSON, that's why you're watching this tutorial, you can see that the key is called ID and the value starts with object ID, having this as the value of the object ID. This is not valid JSON because this is not text, that's an object. And it took me quite a while to get to this. So what I do, I mean, it's fine, it's easy to find a solution on the internet. It's hard to understand why you're doing what you're doing. So what you have to do is you need to import a little library. It's called basin.objectID, and we're going to import from, so this is the import object ID. When you import this, then you can use the object ID as text. You will see how I do that. First of all, let's save it. Click enter there. I don't have any box now. And what we will do in the users get, now we just have to convert the ID that you saw before that was an object into a string. So what I will do is I'm going to create a loop, and I'm going to say that inside this data I have individual user objects. So we say for user in data. And what I will do is I will convert this fancy object ID that I showed you before into a text ID. So I will say that the user underscore ID equals the string. I will convert the user underscore ID. So what I'm saying is go to this object ID that was really weird and convert it just to an ID. So I'm going to save this and test it, and then I will solve something for you that you might have in mind now. Send, I get the ID, I get the name and the last name for the inserted BB that we had before. Now this cannot be overwritten, don't even think about it, leave it as underscore ID. It's part of your API, don't think about changing it. Now how about this part here? No, it doesn't do anything. Not yet. This will be part of our application in the next couple of videos, but I wanted to show you this line because most tutorials, they just throw a lot of lines of code and sometimes you don't even use them for anything. So I hope that this was understood. To do a simple test, let's insert a new user from post. Let's go to the form that we had here, the body form data. Let's insert X and XX, send it. The user was created. Let's go to get and send again, and now we have the X, and then the XX is the result that we got, right? Because we're using find. So just so you see right there, that's also the BBB and next XX. All right, I think this is good enough for this video. In the next video, we'll show you how we can create read. It's going to be the update.